Hi everybody, here is just a video to help walk you through practice 6. Again, sometimes it's not very easy to understand what's going on just looking at a key. So it says, what is the vertex? So the shortcut that we just talked about was the x value comes from here. Just change the sign so it would be -5, and then your y value comes from here. Now, if you weren't sure, type it into y equals, and you would find that point in your table. Okay, write each function in vertex form by completing the square, then state the vertex. If it helps, go to your calculator and find the vertex first so you know what you're working toward. Remember, vertex is just that turning point. So go to y equals x squared minus 8x plus 7. Oops, it would help if I cleared that first. Okay, try again. X squared minus 8x plus 7. Take a look at the table. All right, looks like things are getting closer together down here, so I'm going to head down and take a look. As you can see, 0, 0, -5, -5, -8, -8, 4, -9 is in the center. That is your turning point. So the shortcut to write it in vertex form, just like we looked at up here, whatever's in the parentheses with x is the x value in your point, just change the sign, and the y value is out here. So it's going to be y equals, and when you're writing these, you're not dealing with a number out front like we have here. It's just going to be your standard vertex form. So the x value, which is 4, is going to go in parentheses. We just change it to a -4, x minus 4 squared, and then the -9 is your y value that goes out there. That's what you're working toward. Now, the technical way to do it is completing the square. So the steps for that, you want to break up your x's, group them together. So I'm going to rewrite that, but I'm going to expand my parentheses just a little bit to give us space and put the plus 7 outside. All right, so I'm going to drop down one more step. All right, so we want it to look like this. So the rule is you want to cut b in half. This -8 gets cut in half. Half of -8 is -4. So in my parentheses, I'm going to have x minus 4, close parentheses, squared. Now, if that really were -4 squared, -4 times -4 is a plus 16. Well, you can't just randomly add a 16 to an equation, so we're going to have to subtract 16 to balance it out. And then when we're writing this down here, 7 plus -16, or 7 minus 16, is -9. And there's your equation. The same thing we got down here by using the shortcut rule. All right, let's do one more. Let's do this one out first. So again, we're going to group our x's together, expand the parentheses, x squared plus 20x, leave a space, put the -2 outside. It doesn't have an x. All right, so now we're going to cut this positive 20 in half. Half of positive 20 is positive 10. So we have x, just x plus 10, close parentheses, squared. If this really were the case, if you really were to have this and do the box method, you'd get x squared plus 20x, and then 10 times 10 would be plus 100. And again, you can't just add 100, so we're going to have to subtract 100. And the rest of your equation's right there. -2 minus 100 is -102. There's your equation. So then your vertex would be the point -10, -102. Let's check it out to see. Make sure we didn't have any errors with our math here. So let's go to the calculator, which again, you could have done initially to find your vertex to help you work backwards. So x squared plus 20x plus 100. Oops, where am I going with that? X squared plus 20x minus 2, the original equation. goodness. All right. Take a look at the table. All right. There it is, -10, -102. Everything else has a match. All right, so in vertex form, we've already written it. But again, if you were to find the vertex first, then you can work backwards and say, okay, my x value is -10, so in parentheses it's x plus 10 squared, and then the -102 outside. Okay? All right, next one. Same thing, we're going to cut this in half. We'll expand it first. X squared minus 4x, leave a space, minus 18, and we'll leave a space. Cut that -4 in half, so it's x minus 2 squared. If it really was -2 squared, -2 times -2 is a +4, and a -4 out here. -18 minus 4, -22. There's your vertex form. So your vertex itself would be +2, -22. And let's take a look in the calculator to be sure. Type in the original. Y equals x squared minus 4x minus 18. There it is, right in the center. See, everything else has a match. 2, -22. All right, this last one's a little tricky. First of all, you have an odd number, so when we cut it in half, it's going to be a decimal. Second, we don't have a number out here, but that's okay. The third thing, if you put this in the calculator, you're not going to see it because it's going to be a decimal. But let's just check. X squared minus 7x. If you look at the graph, you can see the parabola. The turning point is somewhere over here, maybe around 5 or so. If you go to the table, what you're seeing, if you look down here, you have things repeating, but nothing's in between. So my guess is it's halfway between those, so it's going to be 3.5. But let's take a look. All right, so we have x squared minus 7x, leave a space. Nothing's outside, so we'll just leave that space. Cut it in half. Half of -7 is -3.5 squared. All right, now if you look at your calculator, that makes sense because the x value in your point is going to be the opposite sign, so it's going to be +3.5, which is halfway between those. So that does make sense. But the y value, we don't have. So do the same thing that we've been doing. We're going to, if this really was -3.5 squared, -3.5, make sure that's in parentheses because a negative times a negative is positive. If you left the parentheses off, it would tell you it was a -12.25. So we're going to add 12.25. That would complete this square, and subtract 12.25. And there's your y value in your point. And again, make sure it makes sense. Go back to the table. Your vertex is going to be between -12 and -12. Well, I'd say -12.25 works out pretty well, okay? So that was optional, but it's nice to know how to work with those decimals. You'll get into more of this in Algebra 2, and we'll talk about in Algebra 2 what happens when there's a number in front of the x squared. But for now, we'll stick with this. Okay, that's it. If you have any further questions, just send me an email or stop by my math lab. Have a good day.